Don't guess your staffing based only on square footage. A 50,000 square foot office building, medical facility, school, and warehouse can all require very different labor. Now, how to determine staffing and labor hours for your commercial cleaning contract? Now, cleaning business owners, stop looking at square footage at a building and immediately say, I need 2 cleaners or I need 5 cleaners. My question is, how do you know? Before you decide how many people you need, you first need to determine how many labor hours. Hey y'all, it's Karen Denton, owner of KSC Commercial Cleaning Services and your KSC bidding consultant and owner of the KSC building. And today we're talking about a question I hear all the time. Karen, how many cleaners do I need for this building? And I'm going to show you why that's actually not the first question you should ask. Labor hours come before headcount. So before I decide how many employees I need, I want you to know how many total hours I need. Now there's a difference between labor hours and the number of cleaners. Now here's an example. So let's say you determine that the building requires 16 labor hours per night. You could potentially staff it as 2 cleaners, 8 hours each, 4 cleaners, 4 hours each, 8 cleaners, 2 hours each. All 3 staffing plans give you 16 labor hours. So don't just start by asking how many people. Start by asking how many labor hours. Then you can determine how many people you need to deliver those hours within the customer's cleaning window. And don't staff from square footage alone. Square footage is important, but I would never want you to look at square footage by itself. Because think about this. You can have 2 buildings that are both 50,000 square feet. One could be a warehouse with large open areas and a few restrooms. And the other could have offices, cubicles, conference rooms, break rooms, multiple restrooms, carpet, hard floors, glass, and hundreds of trash cans. Same square footage though. Completely different workload. So square footage gives me information about the building. The scope tells me what my employees actually have to do. So break the scope into areas. Don't look at the building as one giant number. Break it down. Like for example, offices, trash, dusting, surfaces, vacuuming. Restrooms, you got the toilets, the urinal, sinks, mirrors, partitions, floors, trash, and restocking. Break rooms, counters, sinks, tables, floors, and trash. And you have the common areas, entrances, lobbies, hallways, and elevators. Then you have different floor types. Is it carpet, tile, concrete, VCT, or any other hard flooring? Then ask, how long should each area take my team to clean according to the scope? Now you're building your labor estimate from the actual work. And then restrooms can change your labor. Don't underestimate restrooms. A building could have relatively small square footage, but a lot of restroom fixtures. And that's labor. You want to know things like, how many restrooms are there? How many toilets and urinals? How many sinks? How heavily are those restrooms used? Are employees responsible for restocking supplies? How frequently are they serviced? So if I'm looking at 2 30,000 square foot buildings and one has 4 restrooms while the other has 20, those aren't the same cleaning jobs. So look at the occupancy and the traffic. I also want you to know how many people are using that building. Think about it. A building with 200 employees versus one with 2,000 or more can mean more trash, more restroom usage, more fingerprints, more spills, more foot traffic, more consumables, and more cleaning. And then don't forget the visitors. A public-facing facility can behave very differently from a private office, even if they're similar in size. And then when it comes to the floor types, when you're doing a walkthrough, pay attention to those floors. How much is carpet? How much is hard flooring? What type of hard flooring? Does it require mopping? Does it require machine scrubbing, varnishing, periodic stripping and refinishing, carpet extraction? So different floor surfaces require different processes, equipment, and labor. So don't treat every square feet like it's the same square feet. Then you want to determine your productivity rate. Now you can your productivity rate is basically an estimate of how much work you can reasonably be completed within a certain amount of time. Like, for example, if you're estimating how long it takes to vacuum in an open carpet area, that's going to be different from vacuuming a crowded office with desks, chairs, cords, and obstacles. So that's why you don't want to blindly use one productivity number for an entire facility. Your productivity needs to match the type of space and the task being performed. And if you have historical data from your own cleaning accounts, that's extremely valuable. You can compare what you estimated against how long the work actually took. And consider the cleaning window time. Here's where staffing becomes interesting, because suppose your calculations tell you the building requires 20 labor hours per night, but the customer says you only have 4 hours to complete the cleaning. So one person obviously can't provide 20 labor hours in 4 hours. 5 cleaners working 4 hours each could provide. You have 5 cleaners, 4 hours each equals 20 hours. Now, when you're starting to determine your head count based on the labor requirement and the cleaning window, that's much better than guessing. So don't assume every employee produces at the same rate either, because everybody don't clean at the same pace. So here's another thing I want you to think about. People don't always clean exactly the same speed. You may have experienced cleaners, new cleaners, employees who are excellent at restrooms, employees who are faster on floors. You also have to set up time, moving between the areas, getting supplies, emptying equipment, taking trash to the dumpster, and other non-cleaning activities. So when you're bidding, don't build a staffing plan that only works if every employee performs perfectly every time of every shift. Give yourself a realistic operation. And then don't forget about supervision. This is especially important as contracts get bigger. Who's checking the work? If you have several cleaners working throughout a large building, somebody may need to be assigned areas, be able to answer questions, inspect the work, handle customer concerns, manage supplies, and document problems. Make sure that all the employees show up. And supervision is labor too. So if the contract requires a working supervisor, account manager, or dedicated supervisor, that needs to be considered in your staffing and pricing. And then, this is a good business owner's lesson. Here's something that doesn't always show up on your spreadsheet. Somebody is eventually going to call off. If your entire staff model depends only on exactly 3 people showing up every single night, what happens when one doesn't? Who covers? Are you going to go back in yourself? Or do you have a floater? Can another employee stay longer? Your staffing plan needs to work in the real world, not just on paper. And then connect your staffing back to your price. Here's where people get themselves in trouble. Let's say you calculate the scope and determine that you need 20 labor hours per night. But when you look at the price you submitted, you only have enough money in that contract to comfortably pay for 12 hours. Now we got a problem. You either underestimated the labor, underpriced the contract, or both. Your staffing plan and your pricing have to tell the same story. If the scope requires 5 employees, your price needs to support that labor cost associated with those employees. Now, here's your homework. Pick one account you're cleaning right now. Don't start with how many employees you currently have. Start with the work. Write down the areas you're responsible for cleaning and approximately how many labor hours it takes to complete the entire scope. Then compare that number to what you originally estimated when you bidded the account. You might just learn something about your pricing. So the next time somebody asks you, how many cleaners do you need for a 50,000 square foot building? Don't just throw out a number. Ask, what's the scope? What's the frequency? What type of facility is it? What are the cleaning times? And most importantly, how many labor hours does it actually take to perform the work? Because we're not guessing anymore. We're bidding based on numbers. Now I want you to hear from me. What's harder for you when you're bidding? Figure out how many labor hours you need, or figure out how much to charge for those labor hours. Put your answers in the comments. And if you have a commercial cleaning bidding question, leave that in the comments too. I may answer your question in my next video. And remember, y'all, consistency always wins. Now let's grow together.